Welcome everyone to the November 18th, 2020 Little Miami Joint Fire District Trustees meeting. Have the roll call trustees, please.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Lancer? Not here yet, I don't think. Mr. Shelton?
Here.
Ms. Taylor?
Here.
Mr. Van Harn?
Do we have any communications at this time?
There are no communications this month.
What about clerk's report?
Okay. In your packets was the October financial report.
I'm in my meeting.
And as far as receipts go, we have received everything again from Hamilton County as far as our levy monies. We actually received those last month. In October, we did receive the second half of our rollback from the state of Ohio, which is part of the levy monies. So we are complete with that for the year. We also this month got some EMS reimbursements, and then there were a few reversals of some stale dated checks that will be reissued in next month, but those are just a few things for a small amount. So next month, or for the month of November, we should receive our second half of the bond subsidy payment of $58,000 or so. We did receive in November already, and it's deposited, so it'll be on next month's report, both the November and the December contract payments from Columbia Township. And then I do expect there'll be some EMS reimbursements as well, but not a whole lot more to come in receipt-wise for the district until the end of the year. On our expenses for October, first, actually, let me point out a correction. I just noticed today on the second page of the financial report, some of the year-to-date percentages did not calculate correctly. And I'll tell you what those are right now. So the first is under communications. That includes dispatch fees and radio expense. That should be 63%. The next item down, fire operations, all those line items under fire operations should be at a 55% for the year. And then vehicle repairs, maintenance, and fuel, that account will be at 95% year to date. So those three categories did not, the reports that you got sent out did not have the correct percentages. So I wanted to let you know that that was an update. Through October, our year-to-date expenses should be right around 83% or so. So you'll see several accounts that are more than that. A lot of them are because they're complete for the year. We're finished paying our liability insurance, for instance, and other things are very close to it. The three accounts that more than likely will need a supplemental appropriation, moving around some funds from one to another before the end of the year, will be the building maintenance account, which is currently at 94%, gas and electric, which is at 92%, and vehicle maintenance and repair, which I just told you was a correction. We are at 95% for the year. So those three accounts are running a little high, so we will probably have to address those in a supplemental appropriation next month. To point out a few other expenses that are a little different than normal, we did have a vehicle maintenance and repair. In October, it was a $4,700 bill. That was some work on a squad that was having some issues, from my understanding, of just dying out, I guess, in the midst of driving it, or it was running slow or something. So they had to take it into a Ford dealership, get a fuel pump or a fuel injector replaced, and some other things. So that's what that expense was. And then we also received 2 of 4 Surface Go tablets that are used on the EMS and fire runs for data collection. And that was $1,300 spent in October. So at the end of the month, our balance, cash balance on hand, was $1,074,915.67. We will have the debt service payment go out this month. Actually, it'll go out probably this coming Monday. That's $443,000. So that will come off of that carryover. And then the remaining funds is what we have to operate with for the rest of the year, plus the few receipts we'll still get in. I will tell you that compared to last year, our balance at the end of October in 2019 was 454,000. So we're 620 something thousand better. So we should not have that cash flow issue like we did at the end of 2019. And again, we're doing good on payroll compared to our budget because we did not replace one of the full-time positions that was in the budget for this year. So our carryover should be better than expected, should be better than what it was on the budget for the year, which I believe was 50 something thousand. But next month when we have our board meeting, I'll be able to tell a lot better how things are really looking. But again, you'll definitely see that balance change next month since we'll have that big expense with the debt service payment that's going to go out next week. There is a resolution under new business regarding the early release of funds from Hamilton County. We do that every year about this time, where we do request them to release funds that we would start getting in 2021 so we can get them into our coffers as soon as possible. The board has to pass a resolution every year. Then I send a letter, and we usually received our first stipend about mid-January or so. So I'm requesting the board does that again. If there's any questions on that, you can ask that when that comes up under new business. But other than that, please let me know if you have any questions on the report.
Jenny,
Yes.
just a couple questions, if I may. I noticed that under legal services, we are running quite below what we had appropriated. Are we current? I mean, is Densmore current in terms of billing us?
Yes, I just actually received a bill today. And we are current. The bill today was $500 odd. We did not have any union negotiations this year, and that was assumed to be part of what the legal costs would be. Not all of it, but there has been some other savings realized too. So, but that was planned to be part of what was done before the end of 2020 this year. So, but we are
Okay.
current.
Mike, hey, Mike.
Hi, Alan.
Hey, Mike. I appreciate you bringing that up. Just because of some of the unusual circumstances of this year, some of what I've been doing for the fire district has been going over to Fairfax billing because of the different members' interests in the Golf Manor situation. So I expect as that shifts into more of a direct conversation between Golf Manor and the district when it comes to asset allocation and the like, that things will ramp back up for the district billing. But we've been careful in light of the financial situation not to overdo it and to have Fairfax help out a little bit.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that explanation. Also, Jenny, I noticed EMS collections are behind as well.
Yes.
Do we have any information in terms of why that might be?
I don't know anything factual. The only thing I can assume or guess is because of COVID, there may have not have been as much activity in 2020 as there may have been with just less people out. I do project it to be less receipts than it has before. And I think that probably has the majority to do with it. That's the only explanation I can think of. I see that, and just to let everyone know that Chief Timbers is not on the call. He's been texting me. He's been having issues logging in, but he is with me on text. So if he has something different to share, so I'll have him text me that and share it with you. But that's the only assumption that I can make. It's just that we have not had as much activity as we may have had.
Okay. I thought that might be the case, but I just thought maybe the chief or you might have some additional information. Just another quick question or two, and that is, I noticed on the detail of expenses, we had an AFLAC payment of $521. Do you know what that's for?
I do. So there are a handful of employees that do it via payroll deduction, voluntary plans through AFLAC. And so that is pulled out of their paycheck, and then I pay that bill once a month. That is a regular bill that should be paid once a month for those employees who choose to have those additional policies.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. I didn't know if we were reimbursed or how it worked. And then the last question, you had mentioned some tablets at a cost of around $1,300. Is that the CDW government expense?
That is, yes,
1342?
yes,
Okay, all right. Thanks very much.
you're welcome.
Do we have any other questions for Mrs. Cameron? Thank you for your report, Jen.
Sure.
On the old business, first thing that we have to talk about is the Pba contract update. Just for everybody's information, and to begin with, I'd like to thank the union and with President Mike Thompson. They have graciously agreed to carry over the contract for one more year. Contract will stay the same with the deletion of the 3% rate or 2.5% raise. So with their agreement and everything else, we are set for next year as far as negotiations go. Sometime in early next year, we need to sit down and go over the agreement to find out and start our negotiations as soon as possible so we can get it all done before the end of the year. But I'd like to thank, like I said, thank the union and with President Mike Thompson. The second thing I had is an update from Golf Manor. But at this time, I don't see anybody from Golf Manor on.
I'm here.
Oh,
Andy,
okay, I'm
there.
sorry, Andy.
Yeah, I'm happy to give an update. So Golf Manor is having preliminary conversations with multiple jurisdictions. And part of that exploration includes exploring the feasibility of reconstituting our own fire department. I can't get into specifics or the statuses of those conversations because the confidentiality around those negotiations, is important for Golf Manor as well as the other potential jurisdictions. The most critical path forward for us is completing an inventory of both stations, and that the completion of those inventories has been some hurdles that we've had to jump over for whatever reason. I just want to reiterate that knowledge of those assets that are in the possession of the fire district is critically important, as well as an agreed upon valuation of those assets. And it will help us to estimate what resources are available to us as Golf Manor when evaluating our options. We are ready, willing, and able to get it done. We just need to get it done. And it begins with completing those inventories. At the advice of our legal counsel, I'm unable to go further into those conversations, but that's the update.
So are you saying that we need information from the chief as far as what
what Golf Manor needs is a complete and thorough asset inventory of all assets of significant value in Station 47 and the Fairfax station. I've talked to Chief Timmers about it. I believe that asset inventory has started at Station 47, even though there's a little bit of a delay there. And I am unsure, based on conversations I've had with Chief Timmers, about the status of the asset inventory at the Fairfax station.
Okay. What I will do tomorrow, I'll give or go over and see Chief Timmers and find out where we're at and what we need to do to get it moving so that you can get your information, what information you need.
Thank you.
Well, if I may
I'm
ask,
confused. Go ahead, because you're going to ask what I'm going to ask. Go ahead.
well, number one, who is ascertaining the assets in each of the stations? Is Chief Timmers doing both stations, or is he just doing the Fairfax station? And if he's only doing Fairfax, then who's doing the one at Golf Manor?
It's unclear to me who is doing the asset inventory at Fairfax Station. What's been communicated to me was that several full-time firefighters who are currently at Station 47 are in the process of completing the asset inventory at Station 47.
Okay, that's per Chief Timmers?
That's per a conversation I've had with Chief Timmers and
Yeah.
subsequent conversations I've had with those individuals at Station 47.
Okay. Should we be setting a target date in which to get this inventory completed? I think that would certainly be helpful to all parties.
That would be great. I know we've had these I've been part of the discussions going back several weeks, and I'm somewhat surprised that it, as of 2 weeks ago, it hadn't even been started yet. So a deadline, I think, is a great motivator. If we could set a deadline, I think that's a good idea.
I think, Carson, if you talk to Chief Timmers, then we need to try to ascertain or set a target date for that and then monitor the progress of it.
Okay.
So that we're on schedule. Because I think that's, very important to all the parties.
How much time do we want to give him? I mean, about at the end of the year, do we want to go into January?
I think the sooner the better. So what based on conversations I've had with Jim Putoff, the conversation I had with Chief Timmers, and then some of the conversations I've had with some of the staff at Station 47, all that really needs to be done. The bulk of the asset inventory remains the same as in 2016. It just needs to be updated. It just needs to be updated. And what's been communicated to me is it shouldn't be all that time consuming. Again, because the bulk of the assets are already part of a previous inventory. Yeah. They just need to be double checked, updated, conditioned, reassessed.
So I think there's been maybe a little miscommunication on this. Andy, as you know, Terry and I have been talking and with Brian Pacheco as well. And I had forwarded Terry the inventory list from the Newtown separation that had all of the vehicles, it had all of the major equipment on it. It had the valuations that were done at the time, as well as the methodology. And I know Chief Timmers had looked at that and told me what was still there and what wasn't still there. And I forwarded that on to Terry Donlin. So I know that that's been delivered. If we're talking about going through lesser equipment or other inventory that's more replaceable, then clearly that will have changed over the last 4 years, and certainly agree that has to be done. But I do know that at least as far as the vehicles and major equipment goes, those lists have been provided and delivered. So I guess I'm a little unclear as to exactly what is still left to confirm. Is it kind of the lower level equipment that's in each station that's not the big ticket items, or is there still something from a big ticket standpoint you think isn't provided so far?
In regards to Station 47, the list from 2016 has not been updated at all. And I've been told informally that it remains unchanged, but I would prefer a more thorough examination and assessment to ensure that a list from 4 years ago is accurate today. And I assume that it's the same deal over at Fairfax.
Okay, that's fine. And I know that the list from when Golf Manor joined is the one that's operative. And I think we've all discussed informally that not much has changed since Golf Manor joined. But I agree that we can get some final confirmation from Terry as to exactly what's there and what's not. That will help expedite matters. But I when Terry Donlin and I have talked, we've talked several times about I think everybody understands from all the big ticket and mid-level ticket items, what's there and what's not. But that's fine. And I agree that we should set a deadline on this, and it just needs to be done, and it can't be a lingering issue.
I got one question though. I don't know. Should there be an inventory every year of
Mhm.
assets?
So Ohio law requires all public agencies to maintain an annual inventory of all assets down to computers and keyboards and such. And every asset has to be tagged with a number, and there should be a corresponding inventory to that number. And also for our annual asset and liability insurance for the big ticket items, which Alan and others have said those lists should be there. Those lists have to be turned into the insurer. I believe we're with Ohio Plan, Highland, Columbia Township is. I'm not certain what
The
fire
district
district
is
is.
somebody else, but
Okay.
yeah.
But so for annual asset and liability insurance on facilities, vehicles, major assets, and for boards of directors, et cetera, all those schedules have to be submitted to the insurance company annually. So I'm a little caught off guard that these documents don't already exist.
Like I said, I'll get with Terry tomorrow. Alan, maybe I'll give you a call and we can go over this list that we've got and what we need to do. But when I get with Terry, why don't I give you a call?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Right. Do we have any more discussion on the update from Golf Manor? Andy, you have anything else?
That is it.
Questions for Andy?
Well, I have one question, and obviously I talked to Terry Donlin, so I can talk to him too. But one thing that Terry and I had talked about that we thought would be helpful is, without going into any details whatsoever, just your sense of timing. I understand the inventory issue helps you figure out what's available is to put into the resources for whatever arrangement you're going to have. But do you have any sense, just from a general standpoint, of where you are in the process and how much longer it might take?
I wish I could provide a better answer to this, but until we know what resources are available to us as a village, it's hard to determine what our service levels will be, as well as what the best option is for Golf Manor at that service level and resource level. Now, we've had preliminary conversations with several jurisdictions. We believe that there's several good options for Golf Manor, and we're zeroing in on what we perceive, based on kind of navigating in the dark, what that best option is. But we really do need to know. We really need to get this evaluation complete. It's our goal to do the right thing and get and whatever happens as quickly as possible.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And just so everybody knows, Terry Donlin and I have talked as well about getting that allocation done. And I think, we've been discussing that for several months about what needs to be done. But one of the issues is that it's not simply going to be a matter of the district being able to write a check for a proportionate share of the valuation given the current financial situation. We also have the building, the station house, that is more of a complicating factor that we need to figure into the mix. So just so everybody knows, completing the inventory of what's inside the two stations is a necessary step, but it's not a sufficient step. We still have to come to an agreement about how we're going to handle the valuation of the building, and then ultimately, what should be distributed, if anything, from an in-kind standpoint, and what should be distributed from a cash standpoint. So still some discussions to be had there.
So we'll, like I said, I'll get with you tomorrow, Alan, and we'll get with Terry. try to come up with some kind of dateline as far as getting this information to Golf Manor,
Yep.
what we need exactly to give to Golf Manor. So. Any other questions? Thanks, Andy. On to new business, Resolution R11, 2020.
Resolution number 11, 2020, authorizing the board president to enter into an agreement with the Board of Commissioners of Hamilton County, Ohio, for the purpose of selling surplus equipment and other unneeded personal property.
Do you have any questions on this?
Carson, one question. Is this just a formality for being able to do things on an internet auction? Or do we also have some specific equipment or items that we wanted to auction?
I think it's just a formality in it, Jenny, that we have to get this in case we want to sell something or have something up for sale.
Yes, our current agreement
Okay.
with the county expires at the end of the year. So it's just them sending it out to renew if and when the district has things to sell and they want to use them as the place to do it in the future. So it's
Is
for
that
a year
is
period,
that an annual requirement or is it a multi-year?
2 year. It's through 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
You have any other questions?
Given the conversation that we just had about inventory and not certain exactly what our inventory is, down to the last item, is it, what's the process at the district for when you want to dispose of surplus inventory? Does a list come to the board or does the chief make a decision and then move through the auction process? So my question is do we don't want it to become, I realize that the reason that we dispose of surplus or antiquated equipment or whatever is because it's no longer deemed usable or in working order or multiple other reasons. But given the current circumstances, should that decision rest solely with a staff person, or should that be a discussion with the board so that there's no question later on, well, why did we get rid of that? We should have kept that.
I would think right now with the way it is, that anything that we have, we shouldn't be selling until after everything's settled. We need to keep everything as is right now, just so that my opinion, and keep everything as is right now.
And even under normal circumstances, without this inventory and separation hanging over our heads, it would typically come to the board. This is an authorizing resolution to go through the Hamilton County process, but for any disposition, we typically have a separate resolution where the board authorizes the fire chief to put the property up for auction. So anything of any major value at all would typically come to the board.
Okay, any other questions? At this time, I need a motion to adopt Resolution R11, 2020.
Motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Is that Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
The second? Okay.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Hudson,
Yes.
Mr. Lamar,
Yes.
Mr. Lancer,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Ms. Taylor,
Yes.
Mr. Van Harn.
yes,
Resolution R11, 2020 has been adopted. On to Resolution R12, 2020.
Resolution R12, 2020, authorizing the clerk to request the auditor of Hamilton County to make advance payment of taxes.
This is what Mrs. Kemner talked about in her report. This is something that we have done each year for the last 4 or 5 years, I believe. So do we have any questions on this? This time I need a motion to adopt Resolution R12, 2020.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Hudson,
Yes.
Mr. Lamar,
Yes.
Mr. Lancer,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Ms. Taylor,
Yes.
Mr. Van Harn.
Yes.
Resolution R11 or R12, 2020 has been adopted. Now the chief's not on.
I do have, he texted me his report if you want me to read it.
Okay, that's fine.
Hold on, let me. Okay. As far as employees, the district has had a total of 5 personnel that have been tested in the last week for COVID. 3 of them have tested positive and are quarantining. None of the personnel have had to go to the hospital and seem to be recovering well right now. As far as PPE, he has checked with the individuals that are in charge of our PPP. I'm assuming that's on the staff. It was told that we do have enough on hand to last us for a couple of months. That would be things like masks and gloves, et cetera. So their current inventory seems to be well stocked. And then on equipment, last year, engine 47 had damage to one of the side compartment doors. That door has now been repaired. Thanks to Lieutenant McGinnis's crew for putting the door back on the truck and saving the district some money. But they are still waiting on a police report for the accident that happened with ALS 47. I'm not sure what that means, but then that's it.
It's one of the, I guess you call it chase cars that they had an accident in.
Oh.
Yeah. Hit a fire hydrant in Golf Manor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did hear about that. Okay. And that's all that was on his report.
I guess anybody have any questions about the report?
Can we ask, if, without him here, what happens in the case of 3 positive COVID tests? What's the scenario? Since it's not there, we may even want to skip that, but I'm just curious.
You're talking about if somebody is tested positive and then.
Yes.
Alan, you might be better, but I mean, it's in a 14-day quarantine automatically for any positive testing.
Well, they can't come back until they test negative.
Right.
So regardless
It's
of
got to
how,
be at least 14 days, that's correct.
yes. Yeah.
The CDC has revised guidelines. I don't know which guidelines the district is following, but initially the CDC guidelines were 14 days. But the CDC has revised guidelines to 10 days if you're not hospitalized, if it's not severe. So I'm not sure what the district is, but I just wanted to offer that new guidelines, newer.
Yeah, Jenny, you might want to forward Terry the guidelines that we adopted in Fairfax. And I think they were under the older CDC guidelines, but we adopted written guidelines for this. So now that we've had positive tests, I think it's a good idea for him to take a look at that.
Yeah.
And he can call me to discuss it too.
Are those shifts easily coverable and services still maintained, I'm assuming?
So I know there was a shift where there was a shortage and they didn't have any problem covering that shift. I even think Chief Timmers worked the shift.
Well, I know that Chief Timmers has been filling in if for some reason we're short over here as far as like driving and stuff like that. So he's been making runs like that. And he might have come over to 47 and did the same thing.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Do we have any Board of Trustees discussion? Okay. This time we're open for adjournment. Have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Oh, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.